Hello and welcome everyone to this another episode in this series of unlearning the falsehoods. This is the last video in which we will be focusing on Christianity. From next video onwards, we will focus on another monotheistic tradition that was hell bent on converting us, that is Islam. Okay, so this is the last video, and in this video, we are going to focus on things as to how, even after leaving this geography, the Christian colonizer, how they still live inside our heads. How have they, even after physically leaving us, they have mentally managed to keep us in the shackles of coloniality. Right? How is it possible, you might ask? All right. So, League of Nations, okay, this name is not new to students of history, but for those of you who don't know, the current body that is called United Nations was established under the name of League of Nations. Okay, now I want you guys to focus on the word that is nations. Okay, nations, in essence, it is a short form for nation statehood or nationhood, nation state in that manner. In one of our previous videos, we have discussed the idea of nation statehood that came out of the Treaty of Westphalia. Okay, in essence, just a brief recap for all of you who have missed the previous videos. A nation state, the idea of nation state that came out of the Protestant Reformation was the entire society must adhere to or subscribe to one religious identity, and hence after that you can qualify as a nation, meaning a homogeneous society through and through. There has to be no divergence, there has to be no diversity. The entire society should abide by a single set of principles. Then you qualify as a nation state. This was the outcome of the 30 Years' War that was fought between Protestants and the Catholics. And this idea of nation statehood was foisted and imposed upon us. Why? Simply because during that time we were a colony. But more about that in the further parts of this video. Right now, I want you to focus on, in the previous video, we spoke about certain facets of the 1857 revolt or rebellion, as many of you would like to address it. The 1857 rebellion. All right. Now, it has been taught to us in our textbooks that from 1858 onwards, the British learned their lesson and they left our native faith or our belief systems alone, which was not true. That I have made clear to you, or we have established that in the previous video, that yes, from 1858 onwards, right, what they decided upon was that from now onwards we will not make it explicit that we are here to convert, but we will make implicit efforts, as in through laws, through education and whatnot. And not that these things were not at play earlier as well, they were, but it got intensified because now the battle had to be fought on implicit grounds, not outright. Okay, so yes, from 1858 to 1990 onwards, there is a reason why I chose this year of 1919 that I'll explain in the further segment of this video. But from 1858 onwards, when there was a transfer of power from the East India Company directly to British Crown, that meaning from 1858 onwards, the Westminster Parliament would directly exercise its control over the English East India Company. Okay, so on and so forth. They said that now will not not interfere with your traditions and whatnot. All that was a lie. But from 1858 to 1919 onwards, rampant conversions were going on. And not just the Christians, both the monotheistic traditions, that is Christianity and Islam, both of them were converting. Okay. And on top of that, there were no laws. Okay, if indeed there was some degree of truth to this idea that the colonizer was not going to interfere with the belief and the faith of the natives, why weren't there any laws to protect you from conversion? Okay. And the scary part is, to this day, there are no laws. There are no concrete laws. There is no blanket ban on conversions. Why? Because secularism. You have to let the other person have the liberty to convert you because it is an inherent part of their faith. Yeah, it's still going on. It's still at play in this, 2024. Okay, so so if you count the time period from so let's say for the sake of this argument, let's consider 1858. I'm not saying that nothing was going on prior to 1858. There was so much going on that just one video is not enough to detail each and every effort that was put in before 1858. But just for the convenience and the sake of argument in this video, from 1858 onwards, okay, uh, there was an increasing push to the English language, to the English way of life through education and whatnot. Because I have covered this sufficiently in the previous video, that we indeed as a race were definitely fascinated by the ways of the English, by the mannerisms of the English. Okay, so there was increasing, I would say, affinity towards this language. Okay, this is something new, let us adopt it. But guess what? Within a span of just, I would say, half a century, okay, most of the well-educated people of this country, although they were like a minuscule number, they had absorbed, okay, they had absorbed the English language, they had absorbed their history, their culture, everything. They had mastered it, and it was indeed the British themselves who had advocated this sort of education. But now let's see what would happen. Okay, they, after consuming history, English history, that was Latin, Greek, and all the revolutions, French, Russian industrial revolution, and everything else for that matter. Okay, what they had imagined is, if we teach them all of this, it would make them English mentally. But what it managed to achieve was, it managed to incite, and it managed to, take out these blind sight that these elites had, that, oh, we are a subjugated race, English are so powerful. But after consuming their language and their history in their language, we realize, oh, no, 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 English aren't really what they make out to be. Okay, so they understood everything. Now there were claims for sovereignty. Okay, sovereignty meaning Swaraj. We want to dictate the way we live. We want to decide our own definitions. Okay, and this was exactly very scary. Okay, this was very scary for the British. Oh, now we have trained them. Now, after even after absorbing our education, absorbing our history, they are not convinced that we are a superior race. It has only bolstered their efforts to claim sovereignty. Okay, so they had to find some sort of an excuse to keep on continuing with this colonial domination. Okay, so there were two people, exactly. There were two people. History students know this, but for those of you who don't know, Montague and Chelmsford, these are the two people. One of them was a viceroy, one of them was sent by the crown. Because when the time was approaching 1990, the nationalistic sentiment was on a rise. There were multiple revolutionaries who were hanged for no reason whatsoever, and at a very young age as well. So there was a nationalistic fervor in the native. We wanted to get rid of this shackles of coloniality, and it was very desperate at that time. Okay, because people were ready to lay down their lives at the age of 21. Okay, so these two people, these two Brits, they come over here and they were asked, okay, you analyze what exactly does the native want and how can we find a middle ground, because they themselves by now had gotten into this habit of living so luxuriously and lavishly on the wealth that was created in Bharat, and they were not willing to let go of it. Okay, they had tasted the forbidden fruit. Okay, they had lived on the wealth that was generated by the natives of Bharat, and they had kept on exploiting it, and now they were reluctant to give it up. Okay, so they had to come up with an idea. Okay, how do we keep these people, this uh, large people, a population that runs into millions, how do we keep them subjugated even after we leave physically? So they had to sow some seeds. Okay, so I'd like to think that by 1919 onwards, the Westminster and the leaders and the House of Lords had realized that in the foreseeable future we would have to concede defeat in Bharat, and we would have to physically leave that geography. Okay, so They woke up early, as cunning as the British is. They woke up early. They started formulating plans as to, even if we had to leave this land, we would want to exercise some degree of control over the people because it is very lucrative. Okay. So yes, there was this Montfort report by Montague and Chelmsford. Those are two different individuals. They analyzed the situation, and they published a report in 1918, 8th of July 1918. And now I'm quoting from that report verbatim. I'm not paraphrasing it, but I'm quoting from that report. Let's see what that report had to say. Okay. We should look on India not as a temporary possession, but as one which is to be maintained permanently. Okay, so in 1918 onwards, there were deliberations talking about that we should look at Bharat not as a temporary colony, but we want to maintain it permanently. Why? Because they had tasted the forbidden fruit. They wanted more and more revenues to be generated from Bharat, and they very well knew that we had the potential to do it. We still do. Okay. But as one which is to be maintained permanently until the natives shall in some future age have abandoned most of their superstitions and prejudices. How do they address our culture? They think our culture is all superstition and prejudices. Okay, so here they are talking about until the natives shall in some future age abandon most of their superstition and prejudices. So here they're talking about until the majority of the population has been converted and become sufficiently enlightened to frame a regular government for themselves and not to conduct and preserve it. Okay, so in essence they are saying that we need to maintain it permanently until and unless the entire population or the populace or the majority of the populace is converted. Okay, this is that report in 1919 speaking. Okay, it's not me. All right, yes. So they were obviously aware that we need to maintain this permanently, and we need to come up with something very concrete, because what happens is once you have a precedent, if you look at the history of the colonies, okay, we were the ones who were successful in getting rid of the colonizer. Okay, there was transfer of power. At least physically we were able to get rid of the colonizer, and then there are, like, it started this series of events. After 47 onwards, you will see that most of the colonies in Asia, Southeast Asia, and the western part of Asia, they got rid of the colonizer. So somebody had to start, and it was indeed Bharat who started this series of colonies getting rid of the colonial oppressor. All right, so they foresaw this, they predicted this, that this would indeed happen, so they had to be prepared. Then what do? Okay, they set up this body of League of Nations that we today like to call as United Nations. Okay, what is the definition of nation that we discussed in the beginning of this video? That is, the entire society has to be homogenized. Each individual in the society must follow same set of principles. So it's just a euphemism for Christian nation. Okay, so post 47 onwards, all the colonies who were getting rid of the colonizer, they were judged on these anvils of standard of civilization. So unless and until, like, imagine a scale from 0 to 10. Okay, that is the scale for standard of civilization. So a country who stands at 10 would have completely converted, would have completely adopted the Christian principles, and a country that stands at 0, that country is very reluctant to adopt the ideas of nation state that has come out of the Treaty of Westphalia, and inherently has a Christian bias. Okay, so they created this League of Nations, they created this elite club of countries such as United Nations, and if you want to be admitted to that country, if you want to trade with that country on an international level, if you want to develop a bilateral relationship with that country on an international level, then you are supposed to subscribe to this idea of standard of civilization, meaning you have to adopt these Christian principles of nation statehood. Okay, So our leaders in 47, after the transfer of power, they thought that there is no other viable alternative available. If you are to survive in this arena of, you know, survive in this arena of these nations, we would have to abide by these principles, and hence we still continue to function on these principles of Christian nations. But there is a secularized way of saying it today. We call them as modern nations. All right. So, yeah. And even after this, even after the League of Nations was built up, they came up with this idea of in group and out group. Okay, somebody who agrees with us, somebody who does not agree with us. All right. So the countries that agreed with them readily, majority of them had already converted. The majority, like most of their populace, had already been proselytized. Now the country that did not agree, that was the out group. Okay, they had to be, they had to either take tutelage, okay, from the civilized developed nations, meaning countries of Europe. They had to be protectorate or mandates of the League of Nations, and they had to learn from their tutelage of the Christian principles, and hence organize on those lines, and only then you will be accepted in these elite club of League of Nations. All right, so by now I guess you might have realized the rabbit hole goes down deep. There is no end to this. There is lies after lies after lies. So yes, we have come to the end of the unpacking of lies from one monotheistic tradition, that is Christianity. From next video onwards, we will focus on another monotheistic tradition that was here with the ideas of plundering and conversion, that is Islam. Okay, but for this, all the sources, like I said, it's readily available on the internet. But like I have mentioned in my previous videos, we believe in giving credit where it is due. So majority of the sources that I have discussed in these videos can be found in this book that is written by J.Sai Deepak. Okay, I might not agree with the stands or positions that he has made in these books, but one very important thing about this book is it gives you access to sources that were previously unknown. Okay, I myself personally did not know that these things exist in written, these records existed. Okay, so go through this book, have fun with it, look at the contents, look at the evidence, look at the arguments that he has marshaled, and I guess it would make a convincing case. All right, that's it for this video. I will see you guys in the next video. Thank you for watching.